Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux taking a look at the second of two Grade 3 stakes races at Woodbine on Saturday for fillies and mares on the Tapeta. Race number 10 is the Ontario Fashion. Let's take a look at this field. We're going 3/4 of a mile, and I think the horse to beat is our morning line favorite. The number 6, Loyalty, came back with a vengeance in her first two starts this year as a 4-year-old. She was tested last time out at Presque Isle Downs. She ran quite well. Maybe getting Lasix back on puts her back on track.
Yeah, that might be the key here. And just looking at her local record, whether it's on the surface or the combination of the surface and the distance, she's been very tough throughout her career from those 9 starts. So she's hard to knock here. Kazushi Kimura has been aboard for both of those wins now in 2023.
She has excellent tactical speed as well. Kimura can put her wherever he wants and will likely work out a trip, as we see from our Timeform US pace projector. They are projecting a mid-pack trip for the morning line favorite. Hard Edge, the number 5, does have good speed, and she's stretching out a furlong off of a turf race. Von Tarzi is very fast, so it'll be interesting to see what tactics they want to use with her. But I think Hard Edge can make the front, and I think this pace will be fair.
Yeah, I think it'll be fair as well. And I think those are the main two. I could see a situation where potentially maybe Hazelbrook is just a couple of lengths off the pace early on, maybe pressuring a little bit. But the top two in here, I think they're the main pace plays.
The number 1, Super Munnings, has the fastest late pace rating from Timeform US, coming off of a third-place effort over the testing turf course at Kentucky Downs. It was a short field. Here she is on the outside, and she certainly has a big look at this, Ashley, turning into about the final eighth of a mile or so, and she's going to flatten out just a bit and finish third. She's run okay on synth in the past. I think for her, it's a situation where she needs pace and a trip.
She does. And I think, looking at her last two, she's actually faced some really nice fillies and mares in both of them. And Kentucky, even this summer, the race at Ellis Park, there were some deep fields as well. And I'm just curious, you mentioned the synthetic aspect of it. I do like, though, that she has local synthetic experience. I think that bodes well for her.
Number 2 in here is Ready to Venture, a horse that started her career in North America with some really good turf form. Recently has been plying her trade on the synthetic with a nice win in the Grade 3 Seaway. What a beautiful ride from Hernandez here. Was able to sit in the pocket, ease to the outside, not a straw in her path. And once she sees daylight, she knows what to do with it.
Yeah, I thought this was a really great trip, and looking at the spots they might have had for her, that she could have gone in the Ontario Matron as well, looking at the horses that finished directly behind her in that effort. But I like the way that she was really able to kick on here. She is going to cut back, but I sort of like that move when you go from 3/4 to 7/8 and cut back again. I feel like horses sometimes are a little sharper.
While Ready to Venture saved valuable ground in the Seaway, the number 3, Hazelbrook, took the long way around. And I'm not saying that Hazelbrook would have won if she saved a little more ground, but maybe she would have been closer. And perhaps the argument to be made for her, and she did win this race last year, is she's now only had 3 runs this year. Maybe she's racing herself slowly back into shape, with this being the ultimate goal all along.
Maybe. I have in my notes here, that's the one good thing about using DRF, right? When you use Formulator, you can type notes. They stay there if you want them there. I thought 2 starts back, my note was that she should have been better off the layoff. She was better. Her numbers improved. She wasn't able to get the job done. I think she got a little tired in the stretch as the favorite, but they went decent fractions as well. And I think last time out, as we mentioned, she wasn't able to save ground. So I agree. I wouldn't be surprised to see her improved, and something close to that race 2 back would at least make her competitive for the minors.
The 4 is Spun Glass, and she's been a hard-hitting turf sprinter for most of her career down in the Mid-Atlantic region for trainer Michael Trombetta. She has raced once previously on the synth, all the way back in 2020 at Presque Isle Downs, and she won that race. That was her maiden win. She hasn't been on synthetic since. It's been a lot of close but no cigar efforts for Spun Glass recently, although last time out she took on a progressive horse named Shambo down at Colonial.
My question with her is just her winning ways or lack thereof this year, right? She's had some nice performances, but when you look to her most recent 2 wins, those are against those nice Mid-Atlantic, Laurel, Colonial, those sort of races. One was restricted, and the other one, when she was able to beat Rambird and Next Out Winner, I thought it was a good effort, but it's been a while since we've seen that, and I think then factoring in the synth, it's a little bit of a question mark.
Here's one of the speeds, if not the outright speed. The number 5, Hard Edge, who was a pace presser last time out in this race, going 5/8 on the inner, the Zadricarda for Ontario breds. And Hard Edge was involved in the pace all the way around the track, and she was pretty game to only get beat ahead.
She was really game. I thought this was a huge effort. Now it's going 5/8 though on the turf. You have to think about her getting back an extra eighth of a mile to stretch out and return to the synth. And it's funny, just hasn't really panned out for her this year, but last year she had a really nice record at the distance. So I think if she were to get maybe lonely on the front end or really be the pace setter in here, I do think she's the type that can maybe stick around. I mean, that's basically what we saw in several starts in 2022.
I was super impressed with Loyalty's campaign last year when she won the Duchess over a troubled super hoity-toity. They tried her against Elders in the Bessarabian in her final start of the year, and she was far from embarrassed against the likes of Our Flash Drive. As we mentioned in the Open, her first two starts this year were good. Her last race was without Lasix. She could certainly bounce back with a big performance. That figure from two starts back really stands out.
Huge figure, 97. It kind of towers over several in here. And I think you bring up a good point with the way that she was able to run at Woodbine. They took her on the road. I still think it was a decent effort. I think getting back to her local surroundings should help her. Her record's hard to ignore, but for me, the biggest thing she has going on is she likes to be close to the pace, maybe a handful of lengths, and she's got a really nice late kick. She's shown it this year at the 6.5 furlong distance, but with the pace that will likely unfold in front of her, she should have plenty of ground to make that run in the stretch and potentially get the job done.
The classy number 7, Our Flash Drive, can never be counted out. She has won graded stakes races in each of the past 3 seasons, including 2 during the current Woodbine meeting. Now, her last 2 races were out of town. They ran her in the Caress 2 starts back at Saratoga, and she kind of bobbled at the start. Maybe that took her out of the game a little bit. And last time out of Kentucky Downs again, I'm not going to fault any horse that runs poorly at Kentucky Downs. It's just a horse for course racetrack.
It is. It's hit or miss. Looking at last weekend at Woodbine, Savvy Joseph Jr.'s horse romped at Kentucky Downs, wasn't able to replicate that up at Woodbine. It's just hit or miss. I think it's hard to really make much of those races unless you see horses are able to kind of take their show on the road wherever they go. With our Flash Drive, I think the big thing to note too, the last 2 wins, they were at Woodbine. One was on the turf, but the first one to kick off the season off the layoff was in the Grade 3 whimsical, and I have to think that she's faced better in most of her starts this season. So she's intriguing getting back to a surface that she's clearly proven 4 of her 7 wins have been over. And I think she's got a similar running style in a way to Loyalty. She doesn't have to be on the lead to get the job done.
Van Tarsi is the number 8. Now, that breakthrough performance last year for Van Tarsi came when they put her on a mission early, and she just opened up a big lead on the turn and kept right on going against first-level allowance competition. She hasn't made the lead in her 3 subsequent starts, and maybe that's just the difference maker for her. I'm not sure she's fast enough to make the lead here, but I think they got to try for it.
I think they have to try for it too, or they have to be pretty darn close to it from the gate. She is quick out of the gate. Her last win was that gate to wire fashion, and really, both her wins were the same sort of style. I don't think it'll be as easy though with the 5 in here. And for me, I'm just wondering, these are deeper waters in terms of some of the horses that she's faced. She's going to face a lot more that have a lot more experience under their belts.
The 9, Time for an Angel, had a 3-race win streak snapped last time out, but don't be too hard on her. They stretched her all the way out in distance. They switched surfaces. They stepped her up in class, and she kind of pulled hard on the lead that day, going the 1.25 miles. Turning back in distance, I expect her to revert to the stalking tactics that have worked well for her in the past. The problem is she's a little slow on the way in.
She is a little slow, and I think looking at her performances, she's going to get tested here again. Last time out was maybe a 2-way test, right? You mentioned the distance. That's not hard, especially on the surface switch and on the jump up in class. But she's also a 3-year-old filly. She's facing older, and she has faced older. You can see in her previous efforts, but it wasn't stakes level.
Awesome Treat, the number 10, is going to be hoping for a fast pace up front, I believe. Her most recent start going 3/4 on turf was her first start off of a lengthy layoff, and she loomed and flattened. And I think that's often a precursor to an improved effort second off the layoff. I think she built up some fitness with that last start.
I think so. And you can see she's, hadn't had a gap in quite some time. And looking at her campaign, she had a lot of starts in what I thought was a short amount of time, but she's been forward in some of them. And I think her last 2, there's probably a reason that she needed that start more recently. And I think she's put on the shelf after a dull effort at Keeneland back in April of 2023. She switched barns, and she's a little intriguing in this spot, though, I think at a price for, if you're playing the exotics.
I'm a huge fan, and I know I'm not the only one, of the 11, Artie's Princess, who's been around for so long up at Woodbine. She won the Bessarabian in 2020. She, of course, won the Presque Isle Masters in 2022, and they were very sporting to bring her back this year at 6. Now, it hasn't worked out just yet, but at least she showed improved speed last time out. I wonder if the blinkers off, though, is sort of a I'm shrugging my shoulders. I'm not sure what's going to work. Maybe it'll spark improvement.
I'm not sure what that's about either, because it's not like they've tried that at all in the last 3 years, so that's always an interesting move. She's been working well, though, and she always seems like she's been a solid workhorse, so I don't wanna read into that too much, but she's always fired off nice works, and I would have expected her to improve second out. Last time out, she was unable to do so, but the crazy thing is she's still taken a lot of respect in both of those races in the tote action, and I think 12 to 1, something like that would be a fair price on her. I'm just not sure we'll get it. I mean, it's Safi, he takes a lot of love there, and kind of anywhere he goes, but certainly is a head scratcher. I mean, she really hasn't shown much in her last 4.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Grade 3 Ontario Fashion. Loyalty is way the horse to beat. I think the 7's going to run very well. I took a little bit of a flyer with Super Munnings, the number 1, because you mentioned the quality of competition that she's been facing down on the turf at Kentucky Downs. I think from a class standpoint, she fits here, but some things are going to have to go her way. At least the price will be right.
The price will be right, and I wonder too, just with that inside draw, if she can just save some ground and sit several off of them and make that late run, she could be worth a long look here. And she does have that experience up at Woodbine. It was a while back, but they were good races. 2 for 3 in the money, one of which is wins. I couldn't beat Loyalty here. It just came down to the sort of horse that I'm looking for in a three-quarter of a mile race at Woodbine. I don't want to be too far off of it. I don't necessarily want to be on the lead where I think there's going to be maybe 2 or 3 horses cranking out those early fractions. So I thought about using the 2 Ready to Venture on top. Just really liked the performance last time out, but at the 6 furlong distance, it was Loyalty for me.
6275 for Ashley, 1672 for me. We'll see if Loyalty can get back to her winning ways in the Ontario Fashion. Best of luck.